kind of buying into it. When it comes to dealing with Putin, he's incredibly naive, and he buys into and accepts whatever version of global politics Putin is peddling at the time.
We're going through the big stories of the day. Edwina Currie and Rebecca Reid are our guests this evening. Let's discuss leaked documents. They reveal that the Donald Trump administration planned to encourage Austria, Hungary, Italy and Poland to leave the EU as part of the president's scheme to make Europe great again. I don't think that translates. What is that? Mega? Mega. Sorry, it's mega, isn't it? There are new suggestions that within the still classified version of the US national security strategy, it proposes to create a new elite C5 or Core 5, getting rid of the G7 and instead having the C5 nations comprising of America, China, India, Japan and Russia. Mark Leonard is founder and director of the European Council on Foreign Relations. He's told us the plans from President Trump are unprecedented.
This national security strategy shows that a central part of Trump and his MAGA regime's goals is about getting involved in European politics and pushing back against a lot of the governments, pushing for regime change in countries like the UK and Germany and France, core countries in the European continent. And, that is pretty unprecedented. And people are quite shocked by the sort of brazen way that goal has been made clear in this security strategy.
Well, the chair of the UK's National Security Strategy Committee, Matt Weston MP, used an urgent question in Parliament to aim at Donald Trump's own national security strategy. The US strategy released last week, of course, heavily criticised Europe and hinted at more US involvement in European politics. Here's Weston addressing it earlier in the Commons.
It is the clearest articulation yet of President Trump's ideological foundation. The whole House should be under no illusion. The United States consensus that has led the Western world since the Second World War appears shattered. It refers to Europe facing, and I quote, civilizational erasure, and it will be unrecognizable in 20 years. It vows to, and I quote again, to help Europe correct its current trajectory and promote patriotic European parties. The prospect of United States interference in the democratic politics of Europe, I believe, is chilling.
Well, Liam Byrne, another Labour MP, chair of the Business Select Committee, said it was hard not to see the rhymes with some extreme right-wing tropes which date back to the 1930s. Rebecca, what are we to do about this? Donald Trump, it seems, is all America first, unless he's trying to intervene with other continents. It seems he is intent on tearing into Europe, tearing bodies like the European Union apart.
Yeah, I don't love it, honestly. I find it quite a concerning sort of set of facts. And I think if anybody had been lulled into a false sense of security, that relations might be positive and that the special relationship might remain special, this should absolutely kind of smash that perception. I'm sort of naturally minded towards Europe. I'm always very, very desperate not to ever talk about Brexit ever again, but it sounds like the word is going to loom once again. I think we should probably have been drawing closer to Europe since Trump's second term, because I don't think that any of the rhetoric early in that term, particularly from JD Vance, would imply that they wanted to be friendly with us.
But that might have harmed our trade deal chances, because Donald Trump really negotiated furiously with the EU. Britain got a better deal.
We did, and we didn't. I don't know if it's sufficiently good that it was worth the sort of, if we had to pick one side, Europe or US, I don't think that long term going US will be sensible, because he's a very mercurial man. And his vice president really does not seem to like the majority of our country. And they've made some very disparaging comments about our free speech history, about the way that we handle social issues. I think we are increasingly socially less similar to them. They are becoming more and more socially conservative. Our right of centre has historically never been sexist, racist, misogynist, any of those things. Our left-right has never had that. Theirs does. So aligning ourselves with them, I think, ideologically is increasingly less ideal. So I would feel more inclined to try and be more friendly with a large number of European countries, particularly the Scandinavian countries, And I'm sad that that doesn't seem to be something we're pursuing. But this should be a wake-up call that we need to be very, very careful about who our close friends are. And this feels very like teenage Mean Girls, like we've been sucking up to the popular girl and she's decided that she doesn't actually like us, and we need to backtrack very quickly as a result of that.
Edwina.
Well, reading the story in the Times about this, I suspect that the leaked document was a policy document of some kind or other. You know, if you're the guy in charge, you might well ask various people to present you with position documents, and at least one of them is going to be a bit way out. And that, I think, is probably what it is.
Well,
because
this is
the White
part of
House
the National Security Plan, isn't it? We heard about it last Friday.
Yeah,
this
but
is more detail from it.
Very clearly said the White House has denied the existence of any version of the national security strategy other than the published one. And Anna Kelly, a spokeswoman, this is in the published in the Times article, says told Defense One no alternative private or classified version exists. President Trump is transparent, and I think that's right. In other words, the document itself looks a bit extreme to us, and it may well be that Trump was interested. There's another way of looking at it as well, which is America, I think, has got fed up with large numbers of troops in Europe, paying for NATO, when other countries, the main beneficiaries of all that in Europe, did not step up. Germany was by far the worst. And the Ukraine war, the invasion by Putin into Ukraine, really sharpened that, because everyone looked to America to sort it out with troops, with weapons. And basically Trump has been not playing ball with that. And I have some sympathy with that viewpoint. It's very important. If it's your defence that's in the mall there, then you have to be willing to step up and do it. You really have to be willing to make sure that your defence industry, your armaments and so on, are absolutely up to the mark, and that you're able to allocate enough money from your budget, instead of giving it to worthless things, that you're actually spending on your own defence and security, because that is the first job of any government. That's tending to happen, and to my mind, that's a source of reassurance. When it comes to the countries where they appear to be encouraging very right-wing MAGA style activity, I see the fingerprints of Putin all over this, and I'm going back more than 10 years. The Wagner Group, you know, the private army that was always encouraged by Putin,
the mercenaries, the
mercenaries have been creating warfare in countries right through Africa and the Middle East. Just little local conflicts, which mean that you end up with an awful lot of refugees, and the refugees are then flowing through Europe for over 10 years now, as we know, either legally or illegally, and creating disruption and unrest in the countries where they are arriving or seeking to arrive, with our country being a very obvious example. Now, that's politics. That's realpolitik. And Trump is kind of buying into it. When it comes to dealing with Putin, he's incredibly naive, and he buys into and accepts whatever version of global politics Putin is peddling at the time. The idea that Europe is somehow anti-democratic, it's nonsense. The idea that Europe suppresses free speech, no, we don't. We're much better at it than the Americans ever are. The idea that we're somehow something to be corrected or put down or told what to do. You know, there's 400 million people in the EU. That's a lot more than in America. Our economies together are as strong, and provided we are clear-sighted and we don't trust Trump any more than we trust the US. I was going to say the USSR. It's very similar, isn't it? As provided we rely on ourselves, which is sad, and not necessarily on the old Cold War allies, I think we'll be okay.